6 men had been lying in the pine scrub on the side of a Louisiana highway since before dawn. They had waited there for 2 days. At 9:15 on the morning of May 23, 1934, a stolen Ford V8 came over the rise. They opened fire without warning. The shooting lasted less than 20 seconds. When it stopped, 167 rounds had been fired into the car. 17 entrance wounds on the driver, 26 on the passenger. Bonnie Parker was 23 years old. Clyde Barrow was 25. The story of Bonnie and Clyde has been told so many times and in so many romanticized ways that the actual facts have become difficult to see clearly. The 1967 film made them counterculture icons, beautiful, doomed, wronged by a system that gave them no other choice. The reality is considerably more complicated and considerably darker. And this video is about the 2 years that led to that highway in Bienville Parish, Louisiana. The crimes, the manhunt, the man who finally tracked them down, and the ambush itself. But it is also about the question the legend has always obscured. Who were Bonnie Parker and Clyde Barrow, beyond the myth? Who they were. Bonnie Parker was born in October 1910 in Rowena, Texas. Her father died when she was 4. Her mother moved the family to West Dallas to live with her parents. Bonnie was bright, did well in school, married young at 16, and was separated from her husband by 19 when he went to prison. Clyde Barrow was born in March 1909 in Tellico, Texas, into a large, very poor farming family. He began stealing in his early teens, turkeys at first, then cars. He was arrested multiple times as a teenager. In 1930, he was sent to Eastham Prison Farm in Texas, one of the most brutal penal institutions in the American South. He entered as a young man who had committed petty crimes. He left as something harder. The two met in January 1930 at a friend's house in West Dallas. They were together from that point on, with interruptions for Clyde's prison sentences. By 1932, they were on the road together, moving through Texas, Oklahoma, Missouri, New Mexico, Arkansas, robbing small gas stations and grocery stores, stealing cars, occasionally robbing banks. Clyde had a particular affection for stolen Ford V8 AS, which he rated as the fastest production car available, and wrote to Henry Ford to say so. The violence was not incidental. Clyde Barrow appears to have harbored a genuine hatred for law enforcement, and rooted substantially in what had been done to him at Eastham. Between 1932 and 1934, the gang is believed to have shot and killed at least 9 police officers. The Easter Sunday killings in April 1934, in which 2 young Texas highway patrolmen were shot dead at the side of a road near Grapevine before they had drawn their weapons, were what turned public opinion conclusively against them. Before Grapevine, some sections of the public had treated them as Depression-era outlaws, striking back at banks and a system that had failed ordinary people. After Grapevine, they were simply murderers. The manhunt, Frank Hamer. After Grapevine, the Texas prison system chief, Lee Simmons, took an unusual step. He hired a retired Texas Ranger named Frank Hamer to track Bonnie and Clyde down. Hamer was 50 years old, formidable, and had spent his career in situations that required a specific kind of nerve. He accepted the assignment and began. Hamer's approach was methodical. He spent weeks studying the gang's movements, their routes, their patterns, the people they trusted. What he found was a consistent loop. Bonnie and Clyde moved in a rough circle skirting the borders of 5 Midwestern states, exploiting the rule that prevented officers from pursuing fugitives across state lines. They returned, repeatedly, to the same family connections, and those family connections kept pulling them back to one place. Henry Methvin was the last significant member of the Barrow gang. He was from Louisiana, from Bienville Parish specifically, and his father, Ivy Methvin, had a property in the pine country south of a small town called Gibsland. The Bonnie and Clyde used Ivy Methvin's address as a rendezvous point. They came back to it repeatedly. Hamer charted this and drew his conclusion. What happened next involves a transaction that has never been entirely clarified. Ivy Methvin met with Hamer and with Bienville Parish Sheriff Henderson Jordan. The terms of the conversation, by most accounts, were simple. Ivy would help arrange the ambush, and in exchange, his son Henry would receive leniency for his involvement in the gang's crimes. Whether Ivy participated willingly or under pressure remains disputed. What is known is that he agreed. More than 90% of the people watching this video right now are not subscribed. 90%. A Texas Ranger spent 4 months tracking 2 people across 5 states. Not with a chase, but with patience, reading the patterns, and waiting for the moment they would return to the one place they trusted. That is exactly the kind of story that needs to reach further. Subscribe to the channel, hit the bell, share this with one person who cares about history. Now let's continue. The ambush, May 23, 1934. Hamer's posse consisted of 6 men. Himself and his fellow former Texas Ranger B.M. Galt from the Texas Department of Corrections. Dallas County deputies Bob Alcorn and Ted Hinton, both of whom knew Clyde Barrow personally from his years of criminal activity in Dallas, and Henderson Jordan and his deputy Prentice Oakley from Bienville Parish. On the evening of May 21st, the posse received word that Bonnie and Clyde had attended a gathering at Black Lake, Louisiana, and were expected back in the area within days. The 6 men drove to the ambush site on Highway 154. It's approximately 8 miles south of Gibsland, a stretch of road lined on both sides with dense pine forest, on a slight rise that gave clear sight lines in both directions. They waited. Through May 21st, through May 22nd, nothing. Before dawn on the 23rd, Ivy Methvin's truck was parked at the side of the road with a wheel removed to give the appearance of a breakdown. The plan was that Bonnie and Clyde, seeing the truck of someone they trusted in apparent distress, might slow or stop. The 6 officers concealed themselves in the pine scrub on both sides of the road and waited again. At 9:15 that morning, a tan Ford V8 came over the rise from the direction of Gibsland. Clyde Barrow had stopped at a cafe in Gibsland that morning, a place now known as Ma Canfield's, and picked up food. But he was driving south toward the Methvin property. Bonnie was in the passenger seat. Deputy Prentice Oakley later admitted to friends that he fired prematurely before the car had fully reached the ambush position. His shot struck Barrow in the head. The other 5 officers opened fire simultaneously. The shooting lasted, by most accounts, under 20 seconds. When it ended, 167 rounds had been fired. The coroner's subsequent report recorded 17 entrance wounds on Barrow's body and 26 on Parker's. Barrow's spinal column had been severed by one of the shots. C.F. Bailey, the local undertaker, later said he had never had such difficulty embalming bodies because of the number of wounds. Frank Hamer later said, "I hate to bust the cap on a woman, especially when she was sitting down. However, if it wouldn't have been her, it would have been us." What happened afterward spread quickly. Hamer, Hinton, Jordan, and Oakley drove into town to contact their respective agencies. Within hours, crowds had gathered at the ambush site. The car, still containing the bodies, was photographed extensively. Thousands of people came to view it before law enforcement could fully secure the scene. The bodies were taken to 2 separate funeral homes in Arcadia, Louisiana. The families of both had asked that they be buried together. That request was not granted. Bonnie Parker was buried in Dallas. Clyde Barrow was buried in Dallas as well, but at a different cemetery. An estimated 20,000 people attended Clyde's funeral. Bonnie's drew similar numbers. Whatever the public had felt about them in their lifetimes, in death, they generated an outpouring of attention that few criminals in American history have matched. The Ford Fime 8 from the ambush was purchased by a private buyer, eventually toured the country as a carnival attraction, and is now on permanent display at a casino in Primm, Nevada. It still has the bullet holes. There are 112 of them visible in the body of the car. Henry Methvin did receive leniency in Texas, as negotiated. In Louisiana, where he was also wanted, he was convicted and sentenced to death. later commuted to life imprisonment. He was paroled in 1942. He died in 1948, struck by a train. Ivy Methvin, whose parked truck had been the lure on the morning of May 23rd, lived until 1946. He never publicly discussed what he had agreed to with Frank Hamer and Henderson Jordan. Were the question the legend avoids. The 1967 film presented Bonnie and Clyde as victims of a system that gave them no other way to live, ultimately destroyed by an establishment that envied their freedom. That reading made them icons of the counterculture and remains the dominant popular image of the two. The facts are harder. By the spring of 1934, the gang had shot and killed at least 9 law enforcement officers. Several of those killings, including the Easter Sunday shootings near Grapevine, appear to have been essentially unprovoked. The 2 young patrolmen killed that day had approached the car to check on what appeared to be a breakdown. They had not drawn their weapons. At the same time, it is not a simple story in the other direction either. Clyde Barrow's transformation into a violent criminal tracks, with some consistency, due to his years at Eastham Prison Farm, a place whose conditions were so brutal that they were eventually the subject of a full federal investigation. The state of Texas created, in part, what it spent years trying to catch. The 6 men who waited in the pine scrub on Highway 154 were not acting wrongly by the legal and moral standards of their time. They were enforcing the law against people who had repeatedly shot police officers. But they had also struck a deal with a man's father to set a trap for his son, and they had fired on a moving car without warning or any attempt at arrest. Whether it was justice depends very much on which part of the story you start reading from. Where do you start? Leave it in the comments. I find this one of the genuinely difficult cases in American crime history to assess cleanly. But what remains? Highway 154 in Bienville Parish still runs through the same pine country. The ambush site is marked by a granite monument about 8 miles south of Gibsland. People still leave flowers at the base of it. Gibsland holds an annual Bonnie and Clyde festival with a reenactment of the ambush every May. The building that was Ma Canfield's Cafe, where Clyde Barrow bought food on the morning of May 23rd, is now the Bonnie and Clyde Ambush Museum. It is operated by the son of Ted Hinton, one of the 6 men in the ambush posse. Frank Hamer returned to private life after the ambush. He received considerable attention but little formal recognition from the state of Texas, which had never officially employed him for the Bonnie and Clyde job. He had been hired by the prison system chief personally. He died in 1955. He was regarded by many in Texas as one of the finest lawmen the state had produced. Others never forgave him for how the ambush was conducted. The 1934 Ford Vate sits in Nevada with 112 bullet holes. The car that Clyde Barrow chose because he believed no law enforcement vehicle could outrun it. He wrote a letter to Henry Ford in 1934, praising the car's performance. He said he could tell Ford that his car was the dandy. The letter was still in Ford's files when researchers found it decades later. If there is another case, another ambush, another moment in history you would like to see reconstructed, let me know in the comments. I would love to keep building this out with you. And if you want to see more of this, subscribe. There is a lot more coming.